Privet, dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10, where we discuss all things property. How are you today? I hope you're well. A very good morning to you here in SW16. It's a bright spring day. Apparently we've got rain coming a little bit later, but hey, the flowers need it, right? It's been a fantastic time so far with the weather, hasn't it? And long may it continue. Everything looks so much better, and our photographs come out so crisp and well. But as I always say, remember, if you're looking at something in the rain, if it looks good in the rain, it's going to be fantastic in the sun. So I hope you're well. Today, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. The first thing I wanted to get onto, because it seems to be a big topic right now, is down valuation. What we're finding right now is that surveyors are more likely to down value properties. Now, down valuation is where a surveyor's had a look at a property for mortgage purposes and decided that the price that you, the buyer, or if you're the seller, the surveyor's against you, but if you're the buyer, the surveyor is theoretically working in your interest to protect you from people quoting the wrong price for a property. And what happens in a rising market is the euphoria can take over and prices can get a little bit ridiculous. And sometimes a price that's totally out of kilter from the market can come along, and we can have what we call a unicorn offer. In other words, everybody thinks a property is worth X, and then somebody comes along and offers Y. Now, the problem for a surveyor is if they can't find comparable evidence, and this means other houses that have sold for a similar price to the one that they're looking at now, then they may downvalue the property. And what that means is, let's say, for instance, you're paying £750,000, £750,000 for a property, and a surveyor values that property at 650,000, 100,000 difference, then the difficulty is they'll only then loan you on the basis of their opinion of value, i.e. if you're paying 750,000 and they value at 650,000, they'll only lend you the agreed percentage on the lower value at 650,000. Meaning that there's a gap of 100,000 that you somehow have to bridge. And for most of us, this is not possible or viable. So then the buyers are left with two choices. They either request that the price is changed by the seller, which is highly unlikely for such a large down valuation, or they go to another lender in the hope that the new lender will have a different opinion on price. Well, how can a good agent help you with this scenario? Well, the answer is in the preparation. What a good agent will do is when the surveyor is booking the survey initially, what will happen is that I think I had a bit of a green screen problem there, but that's not to worry. I think we're still live and okay. So how we can help you with this is that we make sure that when the surveyor comes out to you, before they visited your home, that they actually already have the comparable evidence from us. So by preparing the surveyor, by providing them with comparable evidence, and comparable evidence means houses that are like the one that they're valuing today in a similar or the same area and the price that they sold for. So if you collate that information and provide it to a surveyor in advance of their valuation, then they're far less likely to come along and disagree with the value of the particular property that you've sold. So for instance, if you can imagine, if that house that was on at 750,000, if we had comparable evidence that showed others that had sold between 750 and 900 within the last couple of months, then the surveyor would have confidence in the figure that we've sold this property for. The difficulty is, and where most agents go wrong, is they simply don't provide the evidence at the early stage. And what this means is the surveyor is more likely to come along and decide on a different price by calling a different agent, and that agent may suggest that the property is worth, and may indeed have a vested interest in suggesting that the property is worth less. Some agents are that ruthless that even if they agree with the valuation, they'll deliberately down value, but that's awful. The majority of agents we know of that have been known to down just to try and down the road. So how do you get around this? Well, there's no one answer that's a panacea, but what to be sure of, what you need is going to provide the comparable evidence at an early stage before the valuation is carried out, by getting in touch with the surveyor and saying, right, we'll have the comparables ready for you when you walk in the door. When they pick up the keys, have the details ready for them of the property, together with several other properties that have sold in or around that street, so they have confidence in the figure that we're selling our client's house for. And this is how we defend our pricing, and this is how we help to prevent those down valuations, which, by the way, are running at about 25% of valuations at the moment as a national average. So there is a 1 in 4 chance that your property will be down valued. With us, we think it's a bit less. Well, we know it's a bit less than that. And the reason it's a bit less is because we are providing that information up front to the surveyors, and they then have more confidence in the valuations that they're doing via our company, and that gives them a better chance. Because if you think about it this way, imagine that they downvalued the property, and then you say to them, you're wrong, and this is why you're wrong. You know what? No professional likes to be told that they're wrong. We've had experiences before where we provided comparable evidence to a surveyor, they've ignored it, they've gone and downvalued the property anyway, and then we've argued the case and appealed it, and still they've refused to accept our arguments. The buyer has then gone to a different lender. The different lender has had a completely different opinion on value, and the sale has gone through successfully at the original sale price. So surveyors don't always get it right. They don't deliberately get it wrong most of the time. Some of them are overly cautious, yes. How can you fight against that? That comparable evidence, I can't stress enough how key that is. So make sure, agents, when you're out there, and you're valuing, and you've got a valuer coming into your property that day, that you have prepared, even if they're not through you, sales of similar properties around the one that you've sold to provide confidence to that surveyor. Because I'll tell you now, once they've decided on that valuation, going back and arguing the case later is much less likely to be effective than providing that information in advance, so that their decision is more likely to be the right one, and that is the value that you've quoted for the house in the first place. And it really is a problem right now. As I say, 1 in 4, that's a huge amount of property that are falling into this situation. Now, the other thing I saw today was the sex for rent case with a guy called Christopher Cox in Guildford. Absolutely abhorrent and disgraceful. And I have to say that when cases like this come out, you need to know that this is so, because they love to vilify landlords and suggest that everybody's some kind of evil despot because they're renting properties, and the truth is most landlords are just normal people that have taken a business to profit from that risk as a business asset, i.e. they buy a property to rent out, they rent it out, take money, and they use that money for their family, maybe for education, their retirement. And certainly in things like this Christopher Cox case, you get to see people in all walks of life, don't you? And I just think we need to isolate that and say this is disgraceful. It shouldn't happen in the UK. As far as I'm concerned, throw the book at him and all of those like him. But this is a tiny minority of landlords in the UK. The vast majority of landlords in the UK are decent people that just want a fair rent, want to support their tenants and make sure that they're okay and healthy and happy where they're living. And we always hear stories, don't we, about the nightmare landlords, but there are also nightmare tenants, and you could argue either way depending on what your bias is. But what I would say is, in my experience, the vast majority of tenants are decent and the vast majority of landlords are decent. The minority spoil it for the majority, and I think that's the case in this sex for rent case as well. The other thing I wanted to talk about was what it is that makes us special as an agency, because often people wonder why they should choose one agent over another, and I always say there's no one reason why you should choose us over another. And it was put quite eloquently by one of our mentors, Sam, in a group that we belong to, about the castles. When you go into a castle, when you look at the towers, you may notice that the stairs always go one way. They always go clockwise. And the reason they always go clockwise is because this gives the upper hand to the defenders. If you imagine, if you're a knight with a sword and you're defending the tower, if you're on the widest part of the stair, then you've still got room to defend your tower because you're on the widest part of the stair with your sword. A right-handed knight coming up the stairs would be on the thin end of the stair and therefore less likely and less able to defend. And then what Sam's partner said was, well, that's simple. I just train a load of left-handed knights, which is beautiful, isn't it? The idea that this seemingly impregnable idea can be overcome by looking at it from a completely fresh angle, a different angle. And then she comes on to say, well, what's your left-handed knight strategy? What is it that sets you apart? I think that's a really clever way of putting a whole kind of wrapper around, what's important in your business? What is it that you do that sets your company or business apart from others? And I thought about this with our business. What are we? What is it that we do that's different? Well, one thing we can claim that no one else can claim, certainly locally, is Homes Under the Hammer, with more episodes under our belt than anyone else right across Southwest London, and probably almost definitely the most televised agents in Southwest London for the BBC. So we can say that we genuinely get BBC TV peak time coverage, which is something many can't. Social media, we're all over it, as you can see from this. And as you can see from many of the things that we do, we're very much about what we can do differently and how we can help to make sure that your property gets maximum exposure in all possible ways, not just the conventional angles. And of course, the team, the most important thing in any company is the people that work there. And I'm very proud of our team and the fact that we have such an experienced team, with our newest employee being with us for 7.5 years and the rest of us being much older, but not burnt out. Let's be clear about that. I hate this talk about, everybody says, oh, you're burnt out. It's, I'm burnt out. I'm knackered. I can no longer do this. I don't believe it. I think if you're a salesperson, you're a good one, then it doesn't come into it. As long as you've got the energy and enthusiasm, you love what you do, then that doesn't happen. And our guys are here. We're on it. We're making sure that everybody out there that can possibly hear about our vendors' homes does. And if you're thinking of selling and you're in the local area here in Southwest London, or you just want some general advice, a chat, or you think about auctions, which we love also, by the way, then always get in touch, because we promise you one thing above all else, and that is really, really careful and good service that is going to make sure that you walk away not just with your expectation met, but with your expectation exceeded. That's what we're all about, is trying to exceed your expectation. I always say to my guys, if we can get to a point where the client is actually surprised by what we've done because we've gone that step further, and sometimes that can mean helping to organise a removal, sometimes it can mean just popping in and helping to do one thing or another, or perhaps helping with advice in particular in relation to their purchase, which is something we do a lot of. It can mean all sorts of things, but the important thing is they know, and this is what I want to get across always, is that we've got their back. And when it comes to property, what you want most from an agent is not the cheapest fee. That is the last thing you should be looking at, because the cheapest fee will be the cheapest service. And do you really want the cheapest service for the biggest asset in your life? No, you don't. You want somebody that's going to look after you and is experienced professional, is going to take the care and time that's needed to get the best possible price for you. So if you're thinking of selling right now and just want to chat it through, make sure you give us a call. As always, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition. Until then, stay safe, look after yourselves, and if you can, your family and friends. Ciao.